only we had £1 for every time we've heard electric cars are just too expensive. But is it really true? Well, at the moment, the sticker price certainly is higher, slightly higher, but that obscures many of the savings that electric vehicles offer, and that they are, in fact, significantly cheaper. From experience, I can vouch for the cheaper costs of fuel, lower maintenance costs, and some of the exemptions that are exclusive to EVs. Now, these savings add up. On a total cost of ownership basis, electric vehicles aren't only competitive with petrol and diesel models, but they can actually be cheaper to run, according to LeasePlan's research. So today, we're talking to Matt Walters to get a greater understanding of what it really costs to switch. So Matt, how does the list price and lease cost of an electric vehicle compare to a petrol or diesel model?
In truth, actually, the prices are getting there. They're getting more comparable. So the first thing I would say is it's really, really important that you compare like-for-like product.
Yeah.
So I've heard many times people will be, for example, in the market for a new Golf, for example, or a Fiesta, and they'll start comparing it and kind of saying, but I can't afford an electric car because a Polestar 2 is way too expensive.
Yes.
Of course, you're not comparing like-for-like product from the start point. If you're going to compare Polestar 2, for example, you should be comparing it to something like an X3 or a Q5. If you take an ID3, you should be comparing it to its nearest Golf counterpart. So it's crucial that the first thing to look at is actually, when I'm comparing like-for-like, when I'm comparing my cars, I need to compare like-for-like product before I start. And then when you start looking at PCH, lots of bud terms, PCH, PCP, so personal contract hire or personal contract purchase.
So that's what, if you were an individual leasing a car, that's what you'd have.
Yeah, I mean, why buy a car, right?
Yeah.
When the product is more like a mobile phone and technology refreshes, why would you go and buy an electric car? Why wouldn't you lease one? So if you look at the personal contract hire rates, again, they're reasonably comparable. Right. So if you look at a Polestar, you're looking at sort of around £750. And then if you look at an X3, you're probably looking about 720, 730. Right. That's quite a lot of money for most people. If you look at an ID3 versus a Golf, you're probably looking at about 420, 425 versus 350 for an entry level, 450 quid for a decent one. So they're in the mix. They are more expensive, but they're
not like double the price or something like that.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah. And so in the overall cost savings then, because I know from experience it's not just the lease cost that you're paying every month. It's then, because then if you've got a big petrol SUV, you're going to be spending quite a lot on petrol. Yeah, you are.
So, if you look at, so we use the personal contract hire rates when we're looking at this for 20,000 miles, but it's a decent midpoint for a conversation. And again, you're absolutely right. It's the fuel then that makes this product stand out. So again, if we look at Polestar, by the time you roll Polestar through, it's about £811 a month, including its fuel. Remember, it was there or thereabouts before. If you look at a Q5, you're looking at £950.
Right.
Because the cost of fuel in that Q5 is £250 a month. Even on something like an X3, which is slightly better, it's at between 180 to 200. The Polestar, you're spending £61 a month on energy.
And I mean, that is if you're charging off the grid or off public charges. But I mean, as now more and more people are discovering, if there are periods of the year, if you look at the whole year, where you're not using very much off the grid because you've got solar panels, it is possible to do.
Which is fantastic, right? Yeah. I mean, but again, looking at ID3, so we've got a Kona behind us as well at the moment, which is a phenomenal product. Yeah. And ID3, which is almost the EV child star at the moment, if you will. But when you look at that product, even from a list price perspective, the mid-range, even I was surprised by this, so the mid-range ID3 is better on list price even than its GTE Golf counterpart. So you can get an fully electric ID3 now cheaper than you can the Golf hybrid.
Wow.
That then translates through the PCH being better, and of course by the time you get to whole life cost, you're looking at an ID3 which is about £480 including its energy, versus the hybrid which is £630 because we pull the MPGs down, and even its petrol counterpart's about 520. So the moral of that is when people are saying, well, EVs are more expensive than their ICE counterparts, their petrol diesel, they're just not.
Yeah. And I mean, that is likely to go further in the next 5 years.
Absolutely.
It's likely to be, this is the electric one, this is how much this costs a month, and the petrol ones are a lot more. That the actual total cost, which has always been the argument, but it's a really hard thing to understand when we're all completely used to buying petrol, and it disappears into your general life running costs, doesn't it? You don't kind of notice it so much until you stop buying it.
You do.
Yeah, then you notice.
And I think manufacturer investment in the technology is driving those list prices down.
Yeah.
We're only going to see price competitive get even better as more and more of the Chinese marks arrive next year, and prices tumble even further. And we are seeing more and more products in the segments. If I'd have spoken to you 2 years ago, one of my big concerns as a lease co was that we had lots and lots of high-end product, and we kind of got Leaf, and then Kona came along at kind of entry level. We had nothing in the middle. We had nothing for your 5 Series driver or your 3 Series driver from a price point. That's just not true anymore.
But then what about other running costs like servicing, maintenance, that kind of stuff? Is there a noticeable difference in those costs?
Yes, is the very simple answer. So it's taken a while for the leasing industry and the motor manufacturing industry to learn, basically. So are we able to predict, which is, if you look at a PCH deal, a personal contract hire deal, part of that is about what we think the disposal cost is going to be in 3 years, what we think the maintenance is going to be in the meantime. And until you have some certainty, you're always going to have a degree of caution. So the maintenance is lower and is coming down all the time. Everybody thought the weight on the tyres was going to make them go through tyres more. That's not true. And the insurance costs are starting to come down. Apart from anything else, there was always concern from the insurers about it's being new product, it's going to be desirable, it's going to be more nickable.
Right.
But of course, when you factor in the fact that, if you're a naughty person and you go off and you steal an EV, you're going to have to charge it somewhere. You're going to pretty quickly get spotted. So again, insurance is tumbling as well. So all of these things are coming together, especially when, and I'll go back to it, you look at a Golf hybrid versus its ID3 counterpart, and the ID3 EV is cheaper than its hybrid counterpart. From list price to PCH to full whole life cost. Why would you do anything else?
So then how do you actually work out the total cost of ownership? I mean, can you kind of take us through step by step how those final calculations are arrived at?
I can. So if more than list price, you need to make a decision and this goes for companies as well, by the way. The first thing you do is make a decision as to whether you're going to lease or buy. Leasing makes obviously makes much more sense for companies than purchase, because you're not shedding out that initial outlay. But that's the same for an individual as well. £30,000-40,000 for a car is a lot of money. So you need to think about the lease cost. Then you need to think about, do I want to take a maintenance contract or not? If you take maintenance, obviously you're de-risking yourself. You're kind of saying, well, actually, I'm going to take away all of the headaches. I'm going to include tyres. You might want to bundle insurance, which are deals around now. LeasePlan have got our insurance product. So you can bundle that for 2 or 3 years right across the length of the deal. So you can bolt on and bolt on and bolt on. So obviously your initial monthly outlay becomes more expensive, but you de-risk it. But in essence, you need to look at it and you need to say, how I'm going to run it for. So a 3-year PCH of X pounds a month. How much is my energy going to cost me? Do I want it? What's the maintenance going to look like? How many tyres am I going to go through? Fuel cost if I'm an ICE driver. What's my energy cost if I'm an EV driver? And all of those things go to make up, a total cost of ownership for a consumer, or what we call whole life cost or total cost of operation if you're a company. Companies have got loads of other things they need to think about. We talk about leasing disallowances, we talk about benefit in kind, we talk about national insurance contributions. There's loads of other stuff for a company to think about. But in essence, you just need to look at absolutely everything to do with the vehicle across the 3 years and make a judgment call as to what that running cost is going to be.
And then presumably if you are a company and you've got, 20 or 50 cars, your knowledge of the fueling and the maintenance cost is going to be far more comprehensive. You're going to go, well, this is what we used to spend when we had 50 diesels. And this is what we spend now, we've got 50 electrics, and here's the difference. I mean, I'm assuming that when you see it in that kind of larger scale, it's very, very obvious.
It's huge. So you kind of talk in the hundreds of pounds for EVs, and the numbers we talked about earlier, we were talking kind of, you know, £100 a month in terms of running cost difference. But then you multiply that on a month by month basis, on a product basis, and yet it doesn't take long before you get into the millions of pounds worth of you know, decrease in fuel spend. So the companies who were making the move a couple of years ago are already now seeing that reduction in costs.
Right.
And those are really easy maths. So that's the second highest cost after your lease costs is your fuel or your energy. Most of these companies will have some sort of a fuel card or some sort of reimbursement system for their drivers. So those numbers and those maths are in front of them all the time. Moving to a situation where, in essence, it's 4 pence a mile in terms of, you know, working out those energy costs in very simple terms. You kind of just compare the two. There's, you know, there's VAT on fuel, there's no VAT on energy, so there's some complications that companies need to work through. But in essence, it's a very, very big chunky number on one side, and it's a lot less of a chunky number on the other.
So that covers the kind of general running cost, Matt. But are there any other places that you can get savings with an electric vehicle?
There are. So the first thing, I guess, is the government incentives. So government incentives on EVs still exist. So you'll get some money off the list price, off the sticker price.
And that affects your lease price as well then? So
it absolutely does. So it just kind of washes through in terms of the value. So very often the sticker price that you see in the showroom already has the grant included, but it's worth a check if you're in conversation with your dealer. So that's the first thing. There's obviously then government grants available to reduce the cost of home charge points. So currently the grant is £350. So that reduces a £1,000 charge point to £650. And that might sound a bit complicated, how does that all work? But actually your installer will take care of all of that for you and claim the grant. And then of course, there's things like the congestion charge. So really well publicised, EVs will continue to be free. And don't forget, of course, that clean air zones are now coming into force in more and more cities. So Birmingham kind of started, then stopped, and Bath has gone live.
Right, so that can make a big, depending on how you use your car, but that can make a really big difference.
Absolutely.
So then from an individual point of view, I mean, like, what's the best way for me to work out the perfect vehicle for me?
So I guess the first thing is practicality. You need to have one eye on, you know, do I buy, do I lease? But if you're looking for a new car, you're going to be in that space anyway. You'll have probably already worked out whether you actually want to buy a new car. Most people don't now, or whether I want to go and lease a car. You know, leasing used to get a little bit of a bad reputation in terms of things like end of contract damage and, you know, mileage costs at the end of the contract. But the flexibility of personal contracts now, as well as corporate contracts, is such that you can go in eyes wide open and you can choose the deal that's right for you. So, you know, work out, what does it mean for me? Who am I? What do I need for the next 3 years? Because 3 years is quite a long time. So, you know, from a family point of view, from a, do I need to fit a dog in? Am I going to put golf clubs in the back? What do all those practicalities look like? But you'll be doing that anyway in the mix. And then you need to look at the EV alternatives for you if you're not in that space already, and say, is the EV that I'm looking at going to do all the things that I need it to do? You know, we all know about the huge amount of cockpit space that EV comes with, because, you know, there's no engine, so you can fit more things in it. But, you know, is it going to tow, for example? Do I need an EV that's going to tow? Because they don't all tow yet. So what do I need it for? So there are some other things that people need to think about when they're choosing the EV that's right for them. The good news, though, is that there isn't an EV that isn't right for you now.
Yes. I think that's the big change, isn't it?
It's huge.
Well, that's brilliant, Matt. Thank you so much. Really insightful stuff. We also wanted to get the views of just ordinary people who drive electric cars. So all throughout this series, we're going to be talking to proper, genuine human beings that drive electric vehicles.
Driving EVs for 4 years, and I started with a Nissan Leaf, which we got second-hand, and then after that we've got a Kia e-Niro. Did lots of adventures in that, and now I've got a Fiat 500e, that beautiful thing behind me. So I found driving EVs just so much better than driving combustion engine cars. I absolutely love it. I have a smile on my face all the time, really, when I'm driving, even when I'm stuck in traffic. And I love the fact that they're smooth, they're easy to drive. You have more time to just focus on the scenery and everything, and yeah, they're wonderful. It's just a zen experience, I think, driving an EV. The thing I like most about EVs is the fact that they're so smooth, quiet, there's no smell, and I think all of that culminates in a better experience really to drive. I've never been much of a car guy, but when I first got an EV, I fell in love with it. It becomes a bit of an obsession, to be honest. And I just think it makes me a better driver because you have regenerative braking, which is a wonderful thing. It helps you smooth out your driving around town. And I just enjoy driving in a way that I never did before. I purchased my electric cars firstly, well, it was a second-hand car, the Nissan Leaf. After I had that for a while, I got a Kia e-Niro with a business lease, and I had that for 2 years. We were fortunate enough to be able to get the Fiat 500 with cash, so we've got that now, and then after that we are hoping to get a Hyundai Ioniq 5, and that's going to be, I think, probably a business lease again, because that's actually a very good way of getting a car. When we were first shopping around for an EV, we got the Leaf just because I wanted an electric car. I was kind of obsessed with Tesla at the time, couldn't afford one, so got the Leaf. After that, the Kia e-Niro was a bigger choice. That we did actually want a good family car to drive to Italy. My wife's Italian, so we wanted to do a big Euro trip. It was between the Model 3 really and the Kia e-Niro. The Model 3 I did have a reservation down, and it wasn't out at that point, so we got the Kia e-Niro, and actually we loved it. Absolutely loved that car. I think the thing that is important to do when you're thinking about getting an EV is talk to people that have them, because the EV community is a wonderful bunch of people, and I've made so many friends actually since driving them, and everyone is very keen to give advice and help, and even if you're at a charger and there are other people there and you don't know what you're doing, then they'll help you. So I think engage in the community. If you're on Facebook, then do join whatever groups there are for whatever car that you want to get, and just talk to people. You'll find it's a bit of an adventure. If you're the only person you know that's actually got an EV, then it's a big adventure and it might be a bit scary, but it's any good adventure is a bit scary and it's worth doing, and you'll get so much out of it. It's certainly the best thing I ever bought, and I love it. Well, I would love to do John O'Groats again. The Land's End to John O'Groats trip was fantastic, and when I did that I raised some money actually as well, so that was a wonderful thing. Whether I'll do that in this, I don't know, probably not, but I would like to go to Italy with it, and it's an Italian car, isn't it? So I would love to go to Italy. The running costs of the EVs, all of them, has been so much cheaper than a combustion engine car. So the car we had before the Nissan Leaf was a Ford Galaxy, and that was ages ago now. No idea how much that cost, but it was a lot. It was a lot of money. We're on a renewable tariff that's only 5 pence per kilowatt hour during the night for 4 hours, and that means that we can charge very cheaply, and it's £2.10 to fully charge the 500 behind me. And we actually charge for free most of the time because we have solar panels. So if you can get solar panels, that's obviously living the dream. And then you know at least you're actually driving around fully renewable, and you can look completely smug.
Well, that is really fascinating. So the next time some know-all tells you electric cars are more expensive, you can tell them that it comes down to total cost of ownership. And they're more than competitive now, and they're getting cheaper all the time. So thank you very much, Matt. I mean, tell me about what LeasePlan does to sort of aid people getting into electric cars.
Whether you're a company or whether you're a private individual, so through our insights page, obviously it's online, there's a whole bunch of tools and information there for you. What do I need to look at? What do I need to drive? What do I need to think about? As well as all helpful tools like how do I charge, what to expect, and links obviously to the fully charged videos and the instruction videos. So it's all there to help you along the way. And if that's not enough, there's human beings back at Slough Base that you can talk to, and they'll take you through more detail.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Matt. If you found this insightful, then stay tuned for more episodes with Maddie, Matt and myself. And if you have been, as always, thank you for watching.